Hi, in this video clip we are going to cover the topic of international trade. We are going to go over the example of a war, particularly because we have a war between Russia and Ukraine. And yes, I think that would be great to analyze that situation and possibly bring that as an example. We could have used as well Brexit. Brexit might be another interesting example to inspect the topic. But yes, I found that this topic interesting. So let's see what are the consequences of the Russian isolation and what is going to happen with trade. Yes, so let's go to my full desktop. So we start here. This is the topic, international trade. By the way, I think among all the sanctions that have fallen over the Russians, yes, is the embargo on many companies, such as this one that you can see here in this container is actually one of the companies that is not sending any more containers to Russia. So I believe that we are going to have a huge backlog in the supply chain still that will lead to more inflation, higher prices, but also I believe that Russia is because of many facts like very low depreciated exchange rate, um, many companies making boycotts over like several products and services. I believe that the Russian economy is actually getting yes a loan. Like I think it's only being able to trade probably with China, like us, a country that probably is going to help a little bit with oil, gas, and other assets or commodities that Russia sell. So I believe that is interesting the topic because it's going to lead us to analyze more what are the implications for this country, Russia, and probably we can analyze the case for Ukraine and think about what could happen, what would be the repercussions for the rest of the world. So let's start here. I wanted to start here actually um, because what? Because I am just opening here my path in order to draw like the theory. So let's start then by looking at the theory of trade. Yes, I think this is going to be actually very interesting. So let's start with some theory. All right, and I think the one of the things that we would like to see is what is a free what would be like the equilibrium between the world and the local economy, right? So that is why in the y-axis I am going to draw here. Let me see if this is working or not. No, I think I am not operating very well this. Yes. So let me draw here this y-axis. It's very big, but it's better than when the things are too small. This is my x-axis, and in my y-axis, I am just going to put price. Yes, in my x-axis, I'm going to put a product. Yes, it can be actually anything. Let's see, this can be some commodity such as silver, gold, palladium, something that Russia produces. Yes, so I'm going to put here quantity. And let's imagine that, oh, I think I would prefer here to delete a little bit. Let's make a very nice graph. Yes, so we have here quantity, and let's imagine that this is quantity of what product? wheat. I think wheat is produced in a lot in Ukraine. But if we speak about Russia, probably we will be talking about oil, probably gas, probably gold. Yes, and palladium. Palladium is I think, one of the most important ones. Palladium, right? So let's imagine that we have one of these, only one, just to we can afterwards make like the assumption that we are going to talk about the whole economy if we want. Let me delete this title here, and I will type here theory. Yes. So here, what we have in here, we have a line that we are going to call supply. So the supply, the domestic supply goes something like this, right? And we have as well another line that I will draw in red. Yeah, this red, and I will call this. Yes, you are right. You are right. I'm going to call this domestic demand. Correct. So as you can see from here, so therefore we have a an equilibrium point between supply and demand of the price and quantity. So I will say that this is the like a local economy, right? So as this is a local economy, the domestic supply and the domestic demand from a local economy, I think this will be the price, and I will call this, let's say that is in here. I am not using my rule anymore because otherwise it will take me too long to draw this. So this will be like the price of no trade. Will be the price of no trade here, right? So there is no trade, just a local economy which is providing supply and demand. Let's say that this is Russia. So imagine that Russia is isolated in this at this very moment. So they will need to produce everything that is not being produced externally, right? So they just have domestic demand and domestic supply, and so therefore we have here at this point we have a situation in which we have the quantity of this product or the quantity of the production in the economy, and I will call this the quantity of no trade with the world. Yes, so this is the quantity of trade, the price of no trade. But let's analyze what happened when we have as well a the situation in which we have like a world price. Yes, so that will lead us to a more open economy. Also, I would like to say that with a free trade, the world price will prevail. Yes, domestic consumption um, it will be equal to the quantity demand, and we will see this in a minute, right? I will draw the line for the world price. So imports will be the difference between the quantity demanded minus the quantity supplied. So we better draw that line of the world price. So I will use a different color this time. Let's use this something that is green, something that is different. And I will this time use this rule somewhere around here. I want to draw the line around here. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the world supply. Yes, and when we have external, like in an open economy and like an external sector, so we are going to have therefore here this world supply. So as you can see from this chart, the domestic demand like actually meets the world supply at this level. And we are thinking here that the world is in general more efficient in terms of a price. So I will type here world uh, world price. Yes, there is more efficient, so therefore that is why this price is actually lower than the local economy price in terms of products. They are more efficient. The world is more efficient in many ways, in many products. So that is why the world price is less. So therefore, when we have free trade with the world, we can see we have a very open economy, no barriers to trade. So we can say that this one is the quantity demanded, or the quantity of free trade. On the other hand, we have here this situation in which domestic demand meets like domestic supply. So I think this one is going to be actually this intersection here. We can call it the quantity of supply when we have a free trade. Yes. So we have here the quantity demanded. I will type QD of free trade, and QS quantity supplied of free trade. So this is the quantity demanded, right? And this is the quantity supplied. So therefore, I can see from this graph that actually imports, what I want to import in this country, say that this country is Russia when before the war. Yes, so we are going to have here actually quantity QD, free trade, minus the quantity supplied of free trade. So all this segment here is actually what I would like to export, right? So as you can see in this graph, this is the quantity demanded. Yes, when we have world price, you can see that actually people benefit lots. Yes, I will type this in probably a color green because I was writing in green. So this is actually the advantage of trade. People is consuming more and at a less price. Yes, so you can see now that actually Russia as a result of this isolation is going to what? Is going to consume the quantity that they are going, the citizens are going to be allowed to consume is going to be less, right? And actually the prices that they will need to pay, they are going to rocket the sky. And I think this is mathematics, right? And this is what happens when you take out, when you get isolated. Yes? So you can put again the iron curtain. The iron curtain means when we have the Cold War. So the Soviet Union has like a curtain of countries or like a wall between West and the West civilization and themselves, right? And I think that falls when um, like many years ago when Gorbachev made of the country something more open to the world. Yes, so therefore people was able to consume more at lower prices. So they are the benefits actually of trade. From this graph, we actually can allocate here something very important. I'm going to type it here in black, and I'm going to write it in here. This segment, yes, between these two lines, yes, this is the domestic production. We said before that all these things here from here to here. All of these are imports, right? And all the line here from here to here, all of these we are going to call it domestic consumption. Domestic consumption, obviously, when we have a free trade. So I think you can see from here like the reality of what is going on with this isolation in Russia. So what we should expect from all this isolation, as you can see from this graph, you will get higher prices in Russia, high inflation. Evidence of this is look at the ruble, the currency of Russia, and you will see the huge depreciation that they have had. I think today or yesterday the depreciation was 40% or something like that. So it was more or less 1 cent, right? Um, one cent of dollar more or less was what was the value of one ruble. Yes. So I will describe that as ruble USD. I think was 0.01, yes, something like that. So this means that the ruble lost a lot of value actually very quickly. I will delete this because probably it's not part of this. I am mentioning the ruble because as evidence that we have had inflation. Remember that we can see inflation when we are like able or households are able to buy less with the same quantity of money. That is inflation, right? You the prices increases and then you are able to buy less with your money. So that is why the inflation cause depreciation. So yes, apart from this graph, we can have situations in which we have like a custom union. So I think that situation is probably a little bit different, but the rationale is actually very similar. So, and that is very important for the case of the UK because, uh, yes, we are not isolated really from the rest of the world. Yes, we still have trade with the European Union. It has decreased, but anyway, I believe that it matters because we can analyze the situation in which we have certain trade agreement with the European Union. So let's do that. So in this case, let's use a different color, such as this darker green. I hope that that is going to make the case here, right? So for the situation in which we have, um, let's do it around here. Yeah, this is the, let's say, imagine that this is horizontal. This is the situation in which we have the world supply plus a tariff. It cannot be a tariff, yes. I mean, we do not really have tariffs with Europe, but there is a lot of red tape. So, or I will type or red tape, yes. The situation in which there are barriers for us to sell things and barriers for them to bring things here. So as a result of that, you can see that these same equilibrium points are actually shifting upwards. So in this scenario, I predict that the UK is because of Brexit. I do not predict, this is mathematics really. Yes, so this model is actually telling us that as a result of the trade agreement with Europe, we are going to have a higher inflation. For Europe, probably this line is going to shift a little bit upwards, not as much as in the UK. So my first prediction will be that the UK will have higher um, inflation than the European Union, even when we do not import like the gas and the oil for Russia. I think that probably those markets are going to stand still. So I believe that we are going to have it because anyway, the world prices of gas are going to increase, and that at the end might affect the UK imports of gas. We do not rely a lot on, on the Russian gas, but as Germany, for instance. But anyway, as prices affect the world markets, I believe that that is going to cause as well an effect in the UK. But just as not taking into account the war that is going on between Russia and Ukraine and all the sanctions and the problems that we will have in terms of accessing the oil and resources of Russia and that just because of Brexit, my something that we could test is whether the UK have had actually higher inflation during or after Brexit in comparison with the European Union. Yes, inflation. Remember that is we characterize that with the letter, the Greek character pi, right? So yes, this is what we have. So I think you can see here a very interesting box. So this box here, we can say that on this segment here, we can say that this blue sector, this is the tariff um, uh, revenue. Yes, and this is this all this segment from here to here. Let me do it in a different color. All this thing from here to here. This is the segment that I'm going to call tariff. Yes, oh, I think this is not working very well. Tariff, yes. This one will be the world supply plus tariff. This one will be the tariff. This price here will be the world price plus tariff or plus red tape, whatever you want. Yes, it's anyway like a world price. I will put plus tariff. Yes, so everybody will know that that is what we have in here. And yes, you can see how actually, because of this tariff, domestic consumption decreased. So living standards, or the model predict that the living standards in the UK will decrease as a result of domestic consumption dropping because of Brexit. And we have as well that imports will decrease. I think living standards, I cannot see living standards or domestic consumption decreasing really at the moment. Probably that will be something that we will need to check with the numbers really to see if the prediction of this model is like we can contrast that with the reality. But I will say that imports, yes, decreasing. Yes, at least the trade with the European Union is decreasing. We will need to check and contrast the reality as well here. And domestic production is actually, as you can see, as a result of this, is actually increasing since and now we will need to produce things that probably we wouldn't need to produce before, right? Because and there was before like someone more specialized in the European Union producing certain product, yes, semiconductors or whatever it is, the product that they have in advantage, yes. So I think that is the main playbook that I wanted to present you in this video. And let me check the time. Yes, I have like some more minutes because I don't want to extend myself too much. So that is what I presented here in these slides. So the idea is that you have, apart from this explanation, yes, You have as well the slides here that are going to help you to see more clearly what is the situation when we have no trade, a very open economy, and like an economy that has some trade agreements with certain parts of the world, right? Here we do have as well access to a link. These links conduce to analyze what Jacob Rees-Mogg is saying about Brexit and trade. Obviously, I think he didn't take a course in terms of international trade. His ideas about decreasing tariffs and not playing like against the European Union decisions. I think they're a little bit eccentric, I would say. He is now the Brexit minister, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Yes, I think he was actually chosen to find the advantages of Brexit. Hopefully he will find them somehow. But yes, I think there are certain advantages as you can see from this graph. Actually, domestic production will increase. Probably that will decrease unemployment, although at this very moment it's already low. But in general, I would say that in terms of this graph, there are a lot of advantages on having trade agreements with the world. And I think that is in the spirit of the UK, right? I mean, the idea of the Brexiters was to stop being in the European Union, to have more free trade agreements with the rest of the world. Unfortunately, things are not unfolding in the way in which probably Boris Johnson and the others would like to, like to. The settings are not something that they would like to have at the moment. You know that, for instance, the United States do not want to sign a trade agreement with us. Probably they will sign something very small. If so, hopefully they will say yes in the short run. We need something with a big partner. The European Union, we have problems at the moment with North Ireland. The fact that they do have a custom union with North Ireland but not with the rest of the UK means that North Ireland is going to face problems to receive products from the UK and to send as well. And yes, I think as well that yes, it will be important as well to analyze the problem of Russia, so another country that we are not counting in, and if there is a problem with China and Taiwan, I think the things are going to start looking a little bit difficult in terms of finding that big partner that is going to replace part of the trade that we have lost with the European Union. Let's see what happens. I believe that the UK is a great nation, and probably we will find a way out, yes, of the situation. We have the spirit, but we as well need to check the numbers and try to um, find answers from the theory. Right, so the growth of the world trade. So we cover on this presentation as well. I want to cover that growth in some of exports and imports as a share of GDP. When we have a greater openness is higher, yes. And we want to cover in the next slide the recent slowing and decline. So that is what we can see in here. So you can see here how when we have a lot of openness, this suddenly start increasing exponentially. But when we start having a situation of more closeness, probably after the 2007 and 8, I think this is starting looking more flat. Yes, here we have the world merchandise exports in billions and percentage of the world GDP. Yes, So I think this situation after the financial crisis have flattened the merchandise exports in the world. Yes. So here we have the amount in billions. Yes. And here we have this world merchandising rate as a percentage of the world GDP. Yes. So it might be as well that the world GDP has actually arrived during the last years to this situation. I would like to stress the fact that this is up until 2018. So probably if we see the graphs, we will see here a decline in these exports after the pandemic. Yes, so we will see this direction around here and then a path of recovery. And now that we have this problem of war with Russia, well, who knows what is going to happen? Things do not look like very bright since Russia is a superpower, I would say. So I think they can fight back many of the sanctions, probably get a little bit belligerent in terms of, I do not know, its doings, right? In terms of yes, I think there are so many things they can do to stop the supply chain in general for products and as well for services. So one of the things that worry me the most is probably how easy is to stop internet right in the world. Right, they just need to cut a wire that is somewhere deep in the ocean, right? So literally just with some scissors, no big scissors, right? I think they will cause a lot. I mean, a lot of harm to the world. I think, and I am not talking about spatial objects, right? Like there are as well many things that they can do. I am not talking about hackers. I am not talking about other type of wars, right? That they are very good, for instance, to this type of irregular types of activities, right? Poisoning people. I think you have seen the news here in the UK, etc. So I will say that yes, trade is under threat at the moment, but what we have now is actually a recovery, right? We have supply chain problems, and yes, the levels of exports have increased a lot recently at the point that we have a lot of inflation now. Let me check the time. So I have probably 8 more minutes. I wouldn't like to make a very long lecture. Um, so yes, apart from this, I would like to show you here on this slide the developing and emerging economies versus developed economies. The developed economies, you can see how actually the more merchandise exports is not as high as in developing economies. So I would say that my beautiful country, Colombia, is actually one of the developing countries that is increasing a lot. For instance, this last quarter, we have a reading in an increment in this of like growth in Colombia of 10%, huge increment, historical one. But you can see how as well there is like a top here after the crisis of 2007 and 8. And nonetheless, trade and export merchandise have increased, particularly I believe because here we are counting with China, yes, and India. I think these two countries, because of their size, I think, and as well a lot of investment in technology, I think they have actually caught many manufacturing and service sectors, technological sectors, and how that is how we have seen like a huge increase in the exports by value from these developing and emerging economies, which is actually making them to converge towards the growth of developed economies, right? Still, they are very far away. So, for instance, I would say that my country will probably converge to the UK. Well, it depends on the pace, right? But at a good pace. I will say that in probably 50 years or 60 years, I will not be alive. My country will be like chasing the UK economy, right? And so on so far as I think you know that China is about to becoming like in amount like the biggest contributor to the world growth and the biggest economy in the world as well. It's very easy because they have actually four times the population or more, four times the population of the United States. So if they just increase a little bit the income per capita, I think they will be there, right? The same for India, the same example. So in size, I think they are huge, and that causes that any increment in the living standards to be multiplied by more times in comparison with the developed countries. Actually, the developed countries population growth is not as nice like as in India. In China, population growth have actually decreased, and they are worried about that. So I have here, so therefore here in this slide, that growth in merchandise and trade and commercial services have actually grown. And that is another of the trade values. Yes, an important reason to hint in here. So the reason is slowing and decline, and as well this growth in merchandise and trade and commercial services, particularly from countries that have opened their economies, such as China, right, and other developed economies. Here we have the merchandise trade as a percentage of the GDP. Um, and yes, I would like just to comment on very quickly on this. Here we have, for instance, the UK, and in general, I would say that you can check how actually numbers are increasing for the UK. Yes, as the economy becomes more open to trade, it has gone as to 40% of the GDP, 41% of the GDP, and that is actually particularly one of the points that I would like to highlight today. Yes, if the world trade decreases as a result of a war, a general war, or a war, or the last world war, probably we are going to have the situation of very high inflation and I would like to say in a position in which inflation is already very high in the United States, in the UK, Europe, and not as much in China and Japan. I would say that actually China, believe it or not, is one of the destinations of many investors at the moment, since they have like a very loose monetary policy and very low inflation. But as, I think as a result of this a probable hit in trade, I think China will be one of the countries that actually export lots to the United States. I think they can be one of the biggest losers in times of war, right? So let's see what happened. You can see here the huge increment of China, yes, from 6% to the level of the UK, right? Even higher in the 2000s. It have been decreasing recently, particularly as a result of many policies that try to contain China in terms of like exports, and becoming more friendly in terms of fixed exchange rate. The fact that they fix the exchange rate make their goods cheaper, yes, and therefore easy to export. And I think that is the biggest problem that we have within West and East, or China, the fact that they are like controlling the exchange rates rather than targeting inflation with interest rates. A big difference. You can see as well France. In terms of France, you can see that is huge, like even higher than the UK. Germany, again, better than the UK. Ireland, better than the UK. Not as much as China, but uh, I think starting from 8.8 and giving the magnitude of the population of China, I think this huge increment from 8% to 35% is making India very much, or way more relevant in the world at the side of China, right? So very interesting case as well for in terms of investment. If there is not a war, probably that would be a good destination together with China. Problem with China is the political problem with the Communist Party. I would prefer India, and also I would say that Russia. Everything at the moment is assets are very cheap in Russia because of the sanctions. So that might be a possibility of investment in if and only if there is peace with Russia, and they probably stop their adventure. I would say is less than an adventure. It's like a nightmare of a war in Ukraine. Okay, guys. Yes, very interesting is the case of the Netherlands. I think a country that we would like, many countries would like to follow because of the equality of the society, right? A huge increase from doubling the percentage of the GDP from 77% to 141%, almost double in from the 60s up until 2020s, 2018. So very interesting case indeed. Therefore, the UK is only like 11% of increment GDP, but still is huge. Of course, taking into account that the UK is one of the most advanced economies in the world. Okay, the same happened to the United States from 7% to 22%. I think that is huge. That is three times, not as much as China, of course. I think United States is the richest economy by far in terms of living standards per capita. That will not be replaced by China anytime soon. The per capita value of the economy of the United States is huge, it's massive, and their importance in everything is massive as well. So here we have the UK trade in goods and services as a percentage of the GDP for the UK. We commented on that on the previous slide. And here we have the trade in commercial services because we have previously goods. So we can see here services. I think the UK, you know, that is a more service-oriented economy. So doubling here from the 80s up until 2018. And we can see like a similar pattern in the Netherlands. Yes, the United States doubling more or less, not very there with the 7%, but yes, doubling the same, more or less the same increment in services for France and China. China, the increment of the percentage of GDP is from 2.2% to 5.6%. So that is huge and higher than any other countries that we are visiting here. Even for the world, right? If we can see the world, just from 7.3% to 12.5%, meaning that therefore there are some countries that are not converging. And I think we will look at the African continent and many other countries in Asia that are probably not going in the direction of converging towards a more developed economy. So we covered then today. I will stop here my lecture. The trade values, the growth of the world trade, the trade volumes as well. I think that comes next. But I think we with like covering goods and services and exports and imports, I think you have seen already the advantages of trade. You can presume then that the long-term growth in volume of trade is going to be there since both goods and services are increasing. And we can compare as well further in terms of volumes, the year to year growth rates in volumes and values of trade, and that is actually something that goes around here. The world and growth in world merchandise in export by value and volume. And yes, we have a bad blip in 2007 and another bad blip in 2020. But I think that in part, at a very good extent, it has been solved at the moment. I finished then with this slide, which is the share of the world merchandise exports by value. You can see here many relevant countries. We can compare particularly the United Kingdom with France and Germany. In terms of production of merchandise exports, Germany is more relevant than the UK, but the UK is more relevant in terms of services. Yes, and I think that that is important because obviously we are the counterparty of Germany, so we export a lot of services to Germany, and the other way around. Yes, they export here a lot of cars, particularly, and many other goods to the UK. Okay, guys, I think that is pretty much what I wanted to cover in this lecture about the advantages of trade and how Russia will be affected under the current circumstances. I hope to see you face to face soon. Bye.